Right, hello, my name's Tom Martin, I'm the content director at Fresh 92.7. Wow, that is an echoey speaker. Is that really what my accent sounds like? Shit. All right, it's my absolute pleasure to bring three people up to the stage who could probably accelerate all of your careers like that. So they're very important people. If they ask you to buy them a beer later, just do it, right? Don't even ask the question, just do it. But I'd like you to put your hands together. Welcome to the stage, Peter, Tom and Matt. We'll speak to them about how to get a gig. Just grab a seat in the microphone, chaps. Look, Tom on the same couch. So just for those of you who don't know who you're looking at, Tom to my left, your right, is from HQ, Matt, Crown Ruler and Rocket Bar, and Peter from Zhivago. Okay, let's start with the really easy one. Peter, what do you look for when someone wants a gig at your bar?
Probably check their SoundCloud first. Most people normally send in a demo or something. If it's a track, I'll normally look for a mix. So it's always a good idea to have a mix publicly accessible or putting it in directly when you're looking for a song. That's basically it.
It's pretty simple.
It has to fit, it has to be for the crowd, it has to be eclectic. If it's one certain genre, it's normally not going to suit for Zhivago specifically, so people have to show that they're eclectic and they've got good song choice. I'd probably recommend the first thing is for people to go to Zhivago, see what we're doing there. Friday and Saturday nights are more based on resident DJs. Sundays we'll bring in the international act, so it depends on the act itself if we're going to be doing that genre. But then ultimately, throughout the whole night, people don't want the same genre either, so they're there for the main act. A DJ set's a lot different if it's opening, if it's support, if it's main slot, if it's closing. It's a multi-dynamic sort of affair.
Matt, you're working across a number of different fields and you've done a whole bunch of different stuff in the time that I've known you. In terms of how you find talent, do you go looking or are you approached?
I look, but I don't have heaps of time to look either. So someone that hits me up on Facebook and can show that they're quite diverse in their music knowledge and appreciation, that's probably key. I don't really care if you can play like 10 top 40 songs or you've hit Beatport and you've downloaded some shit that people like. I like to hear stuff that you genuinely like, and you can play, I guess, in a cocktail bar and a club. Rocket Bar, who I predominantly book for, works on a live music format, so we kind of book acts and place DJs and producers and whatever around that act. So yeah, I guess diversity is the main thing, and an actual knowledge of music and an interest in music. I'm from a school where being a DJ isn't about being in a club and being the cool guy, it's about music and playing. I think, for me anyway, like vinyl, playing records is really important to me, and showing that you have progressed through your skills or through the practice or something, if that makes sense.
It kind of raises an interesting point in the Facebook comments, one that I think we'll probably end up coming back to. But, you know, Tom, tell us about maybe the difference for you. Somebody approaches you for a gig. What's the difference between somebody who's really good at networking as opposed to somebody who's got a really great set of skills? And is there a value that you place on one or the other?
There's definitely value to both. But, you know, one of the first things I do, apart from checking their SoundCloud and Facebook, is, you know, making sure the person's out about town, they're coming to the venue, they're bringing their friends to the venue.
Yeah, supporting club nights is important, because obviously there's so many club nights to go to, and showing you're about that booking or you're into that music.
Yeah. Yeah, if you're not coming to the club, then don't even bother, basically. Like, that's the way I see it. But, yeah, you can be a great producer, great bedroom DJ, but you need to get out there.
You've all kind of mentioned that range, that diversity. Where does accessibility and diversity meet? Like, how far can you push the boat out before you guys start going?
Heaps far for me. I'm into weird shit. Like, I think a DJ set shouldn't be, like I said, about playing top 40 stuff. It should be about playing some interesting Turkish music and then some hip hop, and knowing like how music relates with each other, like different I guess my interests lie in soul music, and knowing that soul music isn't just like Aretha Franklin, but thinking that it's hip hop, it's funk, it's disco, it's even house music, you know? That like sort of down tempo, beatsy stuff that's quite popular at the moment. Like, just, I don't know, good music. That's...
Peter, when you talked about, checking somebody's SoundCloud and that sort of thing, and you talked about the idea of it being almost a flow, like it was for a night, is there a guideline to that structure? Is there something specifically you're looking for? Or does it matter? Is 15 minutes enough to get my point across if I'm a DJ?
Yeah, I think it can be potentially. It's tough ultimately. I think if you know what... If people have a good enough idea of their music and their choice, ultimately it's going to be portrayed in their sets as well. And you can have a different variety of sets. You could have a strictly funk set, could have a strictly EDM set. Zhivago specifically doesn't do too much of the mainstream, higher tempo EDM stuff, but it doesn't mean that you necessarily can't portray that, and have that in your arsenal. And that might be something that, another club, that's their main bread and butter. And that's ultimately why clubs exist. They have their own niche, they know their crowd, they tap into that, and the DJ has to suit as well. There's multiple examples in the scene of a DJ who plays sets at Zhivago, Rocker and HQ, and they can do that because they're eclectic and they know how to appease the crowd.
Tom, you mentioned as well about people hitting you up and supporting the club and those sort of things. And Matt, you spoke before about being a little short on time to find people. Probably fair to say the expectation is that if you want a gig, you've got to go to the place that you want the gig. What is the best first approach? Is it a Facebook? Is it a pigeon mail? Is it a handwritten letter? What is it?
In terms of like coming out and supporting the night, or
how do I get in front of you guys first and foremost? What's the best way to make that first contact?
A lot of people. I've got a fair few people on Facebook. You can just add me on Facebook, and not suck ups doesn't work really, as far as I'm concerned. But just come out if you're if you're really a fan of the club and the music that's being played there. Come out. If you're not, go to the club that you are a fan of the music. Like that's. There's no point just trying to get a gig and pretending that you like, HQ is obviously very EDM based compared to these guys. Don't come to the club if you hate Will Sparks. It's that simple. Don't bag out Will Sparks on Facebook, then hit us up for a gig. It's not rocket science,
What about you, Matt?
Email, for sure. Like, I'll give you my email if you want, but don't talk to me on Facebook. I hate Facebook. It's like a necessary evil of what I guess we all do as promoters, but like, I hate that message little thing that pops up. It sucks.
Yeah, I don't actually have Facebook, so you won't contact me on there. No. 4 years.
I'm jealous, dude.
Yeah. Email, definitely.
I've got a bit of a Facebook addiction, so feel free. Just no game requests. Candy Crush, jog on.
That goes for me too.
Candy Crush is the shit, dude.
We're getting off topic.
But I think ultimately, if you want a booking, you're going to do your research, you'll find the website, you'll find the info link, you'll find the people that matter. Even though you might not get a formal reply, or it might not be something you might not think have been reached, good company structure will dictate that people who need to see it will see it, and ultimately you just got to keep on persisting.
Even like reference from a friend or someone, like a mutual contact. It's Adelaide. It's not too hard to get in contact with anyone, any of us or anyone else.
What are the most common mistakes people make when they're approaching you guys for gigs?
iPhone on a turntable. Don't do it.
Peter?
Probably coming out, you can read straight through most people when they send you an email. If they've sent the email out to 30 other people, it's a mass generic email. They're not aware of the genres. They're not pitching for a night. They're not showing any intent to it. They're very much generic in their approach. That probably would be something that I'd brush over most of the time.
Yeah. Following up from that, BCC, that's all I got to say. Use BCC. Don't email 5 clubs and 20 labels with your one track.
Or just write 5 different emails.
Yeah, that's more professional. I'll do that, definitely.
Yeah, don't send a group email.
If and Matt, this is probably more directed at you. You're doing some work in Melbourne and stuff like that at the moment. I am in Adelaide. I'm trying to get gigs over here. I know that there are more clubs. I know that there are more venues, and I'd like to travel and use music to see a bit of the country. Are there differences getting a gig in Adelaide as opposed to getting a gig interstate, and is there a different approach that somebody needs to take?
Maybe not a different approach, but I mean, you've got to understand that Melbourne and Sydney, there's a much bigger pool of people playing all different types of music, whether it's, I mean, it doesn't even matter. There's going to be 10 other people doing the same thing as you. So you got to find a way to stand out, whether it's a mutual contact to a club promoter, or it's, you know, you've made a great mix, or you've produced a track that's great. You need something to stand out, because it's tough over there, man. It's really tough.
The point of being able to produce as well, obviously that's a really important part of these open house things, and looking to cultivate people who are willing to make their own music. Tom, when you're, you know, auditioning new people, how much is passion for their own music, and how much of that are you willing to kind of let come to the front?
For me, like, you know, you can be a great DJ, but these days, unless you're making tunes or trying to make tunes or showing some kind of passion about the style you want to make, then you're just really not going to cut it, especially if you want to, you know, like you're saying about playing interstate. Someone who's played interstate a few times, we were kind of told from the start, unless you're making tunes, don't even try. You know, it's different per genre, it's different per who, you know, if you know someone, obviously you're going to get a booking at that club, but you're not going to pick up an agent and be playing interstate regularly unless you're making tunes.
It's an important question, and it comes down to money. I think people would love to always get paid to do the thing that they love. That goes without saying. What is the relationship between the aspiring DJ and the promoter, and where does money come into that? Am I expecting to get paid for my first gig, or is there an expectation that from you guys, if it's my first show, I'm willing to do it for the love?
No, you should get paid for your time, for sure, but I think it's a matter of understanding your worth and knowing where you're at in the market. Yeah, I don't know, just understand how much you're actually worth and what you're willing to put into it. Because as a promoter, I'm looking to cut costs everywhere. I mean, you guys would be the same, right? It's like, and in a previous life, I was acting as an external promoter from a venue. So that means I even had less access to money that I'd probably need to spend on a headline act rather than a support DJ. And I can DJ, so I would have probably done it. So yeah, just understand where you're at and don't have your expectations too high.
Does the "I will DJ for free" line in the email make any difference to you, Peter?
No, not at all. It'll all depend. If they DJ for free and everyone leaves, that's even worse than me paying them for it. So, no, that doesn't work. I think ultimately people have to know what club they're pitching for. Make sure that they understand the dynamic of that club, or if it's a club night, or if there's an act on and it's specific to that genre. You just need to make sure, if you want it, you got to own it, and if you create a mix for it. Don't just pitch and say, here's some stuff I've done before. If you know a show you want to pitch for, you know, exclusively, create some content to it, give it something, because we're going to listen. And
content is king, dude.
Yeah, they're going to think, you know, shit, that's good. You know, and back to the question you asked, how would someone catch your attention? If you gave me a mixtape on cassette, I'd probably be very interested.
Could you listen to it?
Yeah, I've got it in my car still. Yeah, old Pajero. Yeah.
Tom, you and I talked about this before we even had microphones in our faces before, about you know, how important online is, and we've talked about Facebook and email and all of those things. The music is obviously the most important thing, the knowledge, the love, all of that passion element. Past that point, a profile, a presence, and online following, understanding you can buy SoundCloud followers and Facebook likes and Instagram followers. Does that stuff matter when I'm putting my pitch in?
It differs per club, you know, it differs per night, differs for everything, you know, per state even, per promoter, everything. But as far as HQ is concerned, as far as I'm concerned, and when I was coming through as a DJ and now doing bookings and stuff like that, it's extremely important. You know, if you're not willing to get out there, promote the nights that you're playing at and support the night, because like Matt said, you know, people are putting money on the line. If you're not going to help them bring people in and just ask for heaps of money and think you're, you know, hot shit, It's just not going to work out for you. It's that simple.
Matt?
Just do your thing. I mean, that's it, right? Like, I don't know.
Oh, and everyone can tell if you're buying likes, by the way, so don't bother.
It does not matter to me one bit. I don't care that you've got a Facebook page. If you're a good DJ and you're into good music, that's the main thing. Like, I think Rock a Bar, Saturday nights anyway, that I predominantly book for, works a little bit different to most venues. And I'm not looking for a dude that can get 30 girls into a club. I just want to hear good music that reflects the quality of the booking. And that's really what I'm looking for.
Peter?
Yeah, I'd probably say judging the crowd and mixing would be the predominant things we look for. If you've got good re-edits of songs, you've got good mashups, you understand, people might take the course of making original production first, but there's always the chance to take songs that are already semi-popular, understanding that, putting your genre of influence on it and really creating something that can be club edits, mashups. They're all things, good gateways that people really appreciate, and they understand your style of music and what music you're influenced by. And then also reposting songs that you enjoy as well on social media platforms, especially SoundCloud. It gives people an understanding of what influences you and what you actually like and what might possibly be in your sets to come.
Let's finish, before we open it up to crowd questions on it, as a sort of a bit of a role reversal and a bit of a pitch. So what are the benefits of DJing in a club? What's in it for me? Why is trying to make these mixes and get after you guys and get into those things and being forward and all those things? What's in it for me? Peter, we'll start with you. What's the benefit of trying to get that first gig?
I guess it'd be self-gratification first and foremost. You're doing it for yourself. If you're not passionate about it, you're not going to be trying to get that gig anyway. I guess more so than that, if you're looking for a career path out of it, it would be understanding crowds, gauging what works, what doesn't, really working the crowd. That's the main thing when you're doing a gig. Ultimately people initially aren't there for your music. They're there for you to curate the crowd, and that's really what I'd look for and what ultimately you'd be getting out of it as well, I guess, initially.
Matt, tell us about, why that first gig is so important to somebody when they're coming up.
It's good exposure to the promoter. I guess it's like it helps build a relationship with that particular promoter. Gives it's experience for you being in a club and learning how a crowd works. It's really hard to DJ to a shitty crowd. It sucks, man. It really sucks. And knowing how to work a crowd, that's your biggest asset. So if you do have to play a hit, you can, and you know when to do it. Because sometimes there's a really bad time to play a hit. You can lose a crowd by playing a hit. It's when it finishes and you play shit you actually like, and then they just leave.
Tom?
Yeah, I think Matt pretty much hit the nail on the head there. You got to know when to play a hit. When you're starting out, you just got to accept that you're not a superstar, you're not the main act. Like at HQ, music format and progression throughout the night is very important. If you're going to come on and just play, the top 10 EDM tracks out, you're probably never going to come in again, so,
I guess you keep on going.
Yeah.
No. Understanding then, when you do get that first gig, where you sit in the set times, how that night will develop as well. You'd normally have some correspondence with the promoter, or I guess you might not intrinsically understand to begin with, but the night does have to evolve, and the headline set is the peak. And that normally lines up with the peak of the bar, and ultimately, if you're not allowing that night to peak at its maximum potential, then the club's not going to be happy, the promoter's not going to be happy, and you could have potentially, dampened a night that could have been greater than it potentially was. So
there's nothing worse than hearing a banger or something at 9 o'clock. It's so out of place.
And I think it's not always about, I'm only talking from Zhivago, it's not always about the banger, A lot of people, you can still, if you want to call it turn up or get into it or whatever it is now, but there's lots of different electronic genres that are coming out now that, like Matt was saying, the funk influence, the soul stuff, the neo soul, you got Soulection, all these different people just creating these crazy influence, piccolo flutes that are in the beat drop that you would never have expected 4 or 5 years ago to be popular or mainstream, but they're becoming now, not so much in Australia, but the Americanization of it, and eventually it's only time before Australia catches up. So, and also another thing, making sure you're current with the larger scenes of music, you know, Los Angeles, New York, you know, staying on top of those areas.
All like those scenes are so accessible for anyone because of the internet. Like Soul Action is a perfect example where that is like totally internet-based music.
Yeah, and every week they got a production and a podcast. BBC One now, you know, 120 million people they hit, and it's, you know, those different areas, those different fields, the podcast, your favourite DJ who's got a set on, if you're vibing that music, he's on the forefront. He's probably loading up a page list of all the hottest stuff that's coming out. You can get that, the re-edits, the redubs, the mashups. People hang for that. If you know, even putting a song that people might, oh yeah, I know what this is, and it's a switch up or a re-edit, that's where the crowd really, they remember that stuff and they'll really take that home, you know.